The ceasefire ended at 8 o'clock in the morning, and in the minutes and hours after that truce ended, we've seen and heard a number of explosions here in Gaza. Our team has seen the plume of white smoke of Palestinian rockets being fired from Gaza towards Israel. And we've also seen and heard a number of incredibly loud explosions which indicate that Israel, as it says, has resumed its airstrikes on Gaza. As I speak to you now, I haven't heard reports of casualties, but very clearly there will be a sense of fear among the residents of Gaza. Just looking around the streets, I can see very, very few people out and about at the moment. It is, of course, the day of rest, but I think many people will have heard the fact that the ceasefire is over, and they will not be confident enough to go out into the street and to resume their normal lives. Hamas says it's not yet got anything from those indirect negotiations in Cairo. It wants an end to Israeli restrictions, an ability to use the ports of Gaza, an ability to get people to come and go from the borders. But Israel says that its priorities are very different. It wants Hamas and other groups, including Islamic Jihad, to disarm for good. And so there is a clear gap between those sides, the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. And once again, the people of Gaza find themselves listening to and experiencing
Israeli tanks are positioned outside the entrances to Gaza, awaiting orders to invade as the aerial bombardments from both sides continues, but claiming an uneven toll of dead and injured. The Israeli military tonight successfully intercepted another barrage of Hamas rockets fired from Gaza toward Tel Aviv. Hamas, however, has had no such success defending against Israeli counterattacks. The death toll in Gaza now stands at over 150, with over 900 people wounded. Inside Israel, there have been no deaths from the rocket attacks, but at least 11
You're detecting
people
there what we've been detecting here, however, and that is that this time the capacity of even your allies to watch this seems to differ a little bit. We heard our own Secretary of State in an unguarded moment while wearing a microphone yesterday, mocking the pinpoint operation aspect of the IDF attacks. That plus the rise of social media, are you more worried now about losing public opinion?
Well, it's always a case. And look, I can tell you that in this case, we not only showered them with leaflets, we called them on cell phones, we text them, and we had 20 soldiers killed. 20 soldiers killed, some very fine commanders. And they had a few dozen killed. By the way, according to our estimates, about half of them were combatants. So this happens in every war, and especially in one in which Hamas embeds itself amid civilian population and prevents the civilian population from leaving. Am I worried that this will have an effect? Of course it does. But you know, at a certain point, you say, what choice have you got? What would you do? What would you do if American cities, where you're sitting now, Brian, would be rocketed, would absorb hundreds of rockets? You know what would you'd say? You'd say to your leader, a man's got to do what a man's got to do, and you'd say a country's got to do what a country's got to do.
Revelation chapter 3 verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. This is where things really get messed up, if it weren't messed up already. The nation of Israel from God's perspective is one. Believers in Jesus, and two, Jews by blood. A piece of land is not a nation. The state of Israel is a modern-day political entity and has little to do with true Israel. God is not concerned with politics of man and has some concern for land but not as much for people. people make up nations, not land and politics. This is key for understanding the modern state of Israel. People seem to think that God softened the hearts of the world's leaders and gave the land back to Israel and think that fulfills the promises of the Bible. Although this is part of God's plan on the way to fulfill the promise, it did not go down quite like what most people think. If you have been watching my other videos, you will know that I talk with the perspective that there is a new world order conspiracy taking place to bring about global government. This is a satanic agenda to bring about the Antichrist. This may be a stretch for some people, but hear me out. It is fact that the powers that brought the state of Israel into existence are the same people pushing for N.W.O. These are evil people, not godly men. They are the same people that put Hitler into power and funded both sides of the war. If you know anything about the N.W.O, you will know that at the top they are Luciferians and are bending the world to bring about the Antichrist. A big part of them are Zionist Jews, that are not really Jews but Kabbalah mystics. Zionists are not innocent Jews trying to get the Holy Land back, they are sinister major players of the N.W.O. How is it that David Rockefeller, one of the biggest leaders in the N.W.O, was instrumental bringing about the Jewish State Balfour Declaration? The land that is now a Jewish state prior to 1948 was the Arab state of Palestine, where people had been living for hundreds of years. They were not enemies of the Jews, but some Jews even lived right alongside of Arabs in Palestine. It was the Zionists that pushed for a Jewish state, and when they got it they sent in troops and carried out genocide on the Arabs. Yes, the people who were the victims of the Holocaust were now doing the same thing. They came to a foreign land and took it over, killing many innocent people. And people wonder why Arabs hate Israel and fire rockets and blow up buses. The truth is, Israel is guilty of far worse crimes than the Arabs. This is the true reason the West supports Israel, because it is a N.W.O-controlled state helping set up the global empire. For the most, it has nothing to do with the chosen people returning to the promised land.
Can you tell me why you are here today? You are Jewish, but you stay with us Palestinians here. Can you tell me why?
Yes, because we are Jewish, and that's exactly why we're here today. We as Jews, we are opposed to the whole concept of Zionism. We want Zionism to cease to exist, and then there will be peace once more in the Holy Land, like before there was Zionism. And we are here today to demonstrate against this war criminal who is getting impunity for war crimes. And also the JNF, which is a land robbery against the Palestinian people in the Holy Land, in Palestine. We as Jews, we feel obliged to stand up and tell everyone, Judaism is not Zionism. Judaism is for peace, against violence, against occupation, against land grabbing, against war crimes, against everything else. That's what we are here today for.
So you don't say that the country is Israel. You say the country is the Holy Palestine.
Yes, it's the Holy Palestine, Holy Land, which is called Palestine. We do not recognize the state of Israel as being legitimate, whether in political humanitarian grounds, and as well as our Jewish faith grounds. And that the grounds of our Jewish faith, we will not recognize, we will never recognize its legitimacy.
The modern-day state of Israel is not run by Christians, believing Jews, or even Orthodox Jews, but by Western puppets and Kabbalah Jews, aka the synagogue of Satan. Now, why would the N.W.O be interested in setting up a Jewish state? Besides the obvious control of the Middle East for oil and resources, they also want to be able to control conflict in the region. It is rumored that the N.W.O is trying to fulfill biblical prophecy in order to bring about the Antichrist. They know the Bible has to be fulfilled in order to bring about the Antichrist, and Satan has tricked them to think he is going to win the final battle. The joke is on them and Satan, because God is using them to fulfill what he wrote in the Bible, and God will win the last battle. That is one theory, and here is another of my own. I think Satan hates first the Orthodox Jew because they obey God's law and brought the Messiah, and then even more the Christian for inheriting the promise. It looks to me on the world stage anyhow he is going after Jews first. I believe that he is luring the Orthodox Jews into the Holy Land only to turn on them in one final battle to wipe them out. Is this not what was prophesied, that peace would be made with Israel then sudden destruction? Daniel 9:24. You can see that even though this state of Israel is not a godly state, it is all part of God's plan to fulfill prophecy. I believe that when all this happens, many of these Orthodox Jews will see the truth and come to the saving knowledge of Jesus.
Well, would all the violence and conflict in the Middle East evaporate if Israel simply ceased to exist? My next guest says Israel is not only breaking Jewish law with its military strikes against the terrorist group Hezbollah, but that the state of Israel itself should not even exist in the first place. What you may find more shocking is that the person saying that is a rabbi. He is Yisrael Weiss from Jews United Against Zionism. Rabbi.
Yes.
Pretty strong words.
Yes, but this is the view that was shared by all religious leaders throughout, the last 100 years when the whole movement of Zionism was created. The concept, the ideology of transforming Judaism from spirituality, a religion, into a materialism, a nationalistic goal to have a piece of land. All the rabbinical authorities said this is antithetical with what Judaism is all about, expressly forbidden in the Torah, because we are in exile by God.
So you shouldn't have a state. You shouldn't have a country. You shouldn't have a government?
We shouldn't have a state. We should be living amongst all the nations as the Jews were doing for 2,000 years, as loyal citizens, people who are serving God, emulating God with compassion. And the Talmud states clearly that if we will attempt to breach these oaths of God, of trying to leave out God, it will just bring to this death and catastrophic results for the Jews. We find that since the inception of Zionism, the state of Israel, there's an endless river of suffering for the Jews and non-Jews alike. And contrary to what people believe, that there's a religious conflict, we have been living for hundreds of years amongst the Muslims and Arab communities without any UN human rights groups to watch.
So let me ask you this, Rabbi. Was life better for the Jews prior to the creation of the Jewish state of Israel?
100%. In Palestine, we have the testimony of the Jewish community living there and other lands that they were living in harmony, and they pleaded with the United Nations. In the documents, we have the chief rabbi of Jerusalem said, we do not want a Jewish state. The Muslims, Christians, and the Jewish inhabitants were ignored with the creation.
As you can see, true Jews don't support the state of Israel, so why should Christians? It is appalling to see that Christians vote for and support politicians that support the state of Israel. They don't even look at anything else the politician stands for. Oh, supports Israel. Here is my vote. This must be a godly man. It's all a political game. People don't even realize that we don't live in a true democracy and that votes don't even count. They think that their nation is blessed for siding with this state of Israel? I don't think so. Take America for instance. I hear all the time that God is blessing them for being a godly Christian nation and because they support Israel. America is not a Christian nation. At one point it had many influential Christians that made it blessed, but that time is gone. It is now the most wicked country on the planet, guilty of many great crimes against humanity, in many senses way worse than Germany ever was. Even if Israel was what we thought it was, God is not going to bless an entire nation instant just on the sole fact that they politically support Israel. Judgment is coming for America and for the world. To further drive my point home that the state of Israel is not blessed by God and is not even run by Orthodox Jews, take a look at the flag with the Star of David on it. Do you ever wonder where they got this image? It is not Christian or Jewish. It is a newly introduced image that was put on the flag. It was never mentioned in the Bible and the Jews have never used it before, so why would it be on the flag? The truth is that the Star of David is an occultic symbol taken from Jewish mystics and Kabbalah. They believe displaying their images everywhere gives them power to accomplish their plan. It would make sense they would use an occultic image on the flag since it was the Zionist mystics who created the state of Israel. So remember this fact the next time you are flying the Israeli flag around in your church service, that it is an occultic image offensive to true Jews. The so-called Star of David is essentially a hexagram, nothing more, nothing less. There is no biblical or Jewish evidence that traces this ancient occult symbol with King David of Israel. However, there is evidence that it was used by King Solomon, after he turned to pagan gods and the occult, late in his life, causing God to become very angry with him. A Masonic book called The Second Mile, an Eastern Star book, reveals that the six-pointed star is a very ancient symbol, and one of the most powerful. The hexagram is used in magic, witchcraft, sorcery and occultism and the casting of zodiacal horoscopes by astrologers. It was considered to possess mysterious powers, says a concise Cyclopedia of Freemasonry. Very few outsiders know about the intimate plans of 33rd degree Freemason Albert Pike and the architects of the New World Order. In the 19th century, Albert Pike established a framework for bringing about the One World Order. Based on a vision revealed to him, Albert Pike wrote a blueprint of events that would play themselves out in the 20th century, with even more of these events yet to come. It is this blueprint which I believe unseen leaders are following today, knowingly or not, to engineer the planned Third and Final World War. The blueprint for World War III says the following. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenda of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, world events, and in particular in the Middle East, show a growing unrest and instability between modern Zionism and the Arabic world. This is completely in line with the call for a Third World War to be fought between the two, and their allies on both sides. This Third World War is still to come, and recent events show us that it is not far off. So in conclusion, we have learned that the promises for Israel are for all believers in Christ, not blood Jews, but unbelievers are cut off from the promises. The State of Israel is a creation of the N.W.O and does not represent true Jews or true Israel. With this all in mind, if we as Christians are going to support Israel, we should be opposed to the State of Israel and pray for the nation of Israel, in which we all as believers share inheritance. Pray and reach out to the Orthodox Jews so they come to the saving knowledge of Jesus. This is where it really matters, not that they have a physical land to call home, for truly this land is God's, and when it's all said and done, true Israel will inherit the Holy Land and the whole earth. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Please subscribe to the channel, and like us, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We need all the support we can get. Remember, Jesus saves. God bless.